My dad had an expression. He said, he used to use it all the time, there's families, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Everything resolves around family. And that, no, for real. I mean, I have, and my family has been raised in the public eye. I've been a senator since I've been 29 years old. All of my children were 3 and 4 years old when I got elected, and 1.5, and my daughter fourth daughter wasn't born yet. And but my dad and my mom had sort of a basic value set. My dad used to say that, remember, Joe, that you're either a man or a woman of your word, or you're not a man or a woman. Your word is your bond. It's the thing. My colleagues, and you'll even see the president, former president, and other presidents kid me, and they say, yeah, I know, I'll give you my word as a Biden. We had an expression in the family that if something really was important, and my parents wanted to know exactly what the deal was, it says, give me your word. If you gave your word, that was your sacred oath. And I think that most everything that I've cared about and the way I was raised, and hopefully the way I've conducted myself, is that everybody is entitled to be treated with dignity. Everybody, no matter what. No, I really mean it. My dad would no more walk by the guy at the shoe shine stand and not say hello to him and say hello to the chairman of the board of the DuPont Company and Hotel DuPont than fly. I was telling you the most devastating thing my dad could say was, you disappoint me. Yeah. He only said it twice in my life. I remember both times. And I was a U.S. Senator. He had retired 3 times. He hated not working. And he went back to work, and he was in Philadelphia. We live in Wilmington. And I went I had to be up there, and we were taking him to lunch and walking along. He was ahead of me, and I was with another guy, a good friend, and guy walked across the street and asked me for some money. He was begging. And I never in my life ever did this before, but what made me do it, I don't know. The guy that I had practiced law with had a saying. He'd joke and he'd say, I'm working this side of the street. And I said, I'm working this side of the street. And my dad stopped dead. My dad never had any money. And he turned around, walked back, opened his wallet. He had $40. Took out the $40 and gave it to the guy and said, you disappoint me. Oh. You disappoint me. And he was right. I'd never done that ever before, and I'd never done it again. But my father really meant it. And my mother, and I'm not sure I've lived up to it, but my mother would say I was lucky. I had one of those moms that, not a joke, everybody in the neighborhood wished she had been their mom. My mom was, my sister and I would go out on dates. We'd be due back, have to be in by 12 o'clock, and we'd come home and there'd be friends of ours. My mother would be hearing confession in the kitchen, you know. Not a joke. We had a small split-level home, and you walk into the dining room, and as immediately walked in the dining room, the door, it was like 15 by 18, the dining room, and immediately left, there was an arch to the kitchen. There was a table in the corner, but you couldn't see the whole table. You could see the chair nearest the door. And my mother was consoling one of our friends. You'd walk in at 12 o'clock, and she'd go like this with her hand, like, keep moving, don't come in. She'd never, not a joke. But anyway, my mom was she was an old Irish lady who was principled as hell, and she'd say, you know, Joey, bravery lives in every heart, and someday it will be summoned. Someday it will be summoned. And her favorite phrase was that courage is the most important virtue, because without courage, you can't love with abandon. It takes courage to love with abandon. So the way I guess I describe myself is always trying to, not doing it, but kind of live up to my parents' expectations, what they expected of the 4 of us. And in a bizarre way, I'm still trying to do it. The book, Promise Me Dad. I get up every morning hoping that Bo's proud of me, because he made me promise that I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't step aside. I'd continue to work in the things that have animated my whole life. And so I'm not sure, I'm just rambling now. It's not, but it's hard to describe. Last thing my dad would say, he said, it's a lucky person who gets up in the morning. And he really would say this, the lucky person gets up in the morning, puts both feet in the floor, knows what they're about to do, and thinks it still matters. Those of you who are a little bit older, think of how many people you know have been very successful and done really well at whatever their occupation was, who no longer think it matters. It doesn't get them up in the morning with a sense of purpose. And I think the greatest gift that you can give a child is an opportunity to find that sense of purpose. What is it that makes them think what they're doing every day is worthwhile? And I was lucky. My mom and dad gave me that. I was asked by the people who did the book, who published the book, what it was that I wanted to be. And I can remember as young as being a kid, and it's in that film, saying to my mom, where they got the film, the old family films they dug up, is that I want to make a difference. I want to do something to make a difference. And as a kid, we moved from Scranton, Pennsylvania, which I loved, and my family moved because there was, in the middle of the 50s, coal had died. I was in second grade, third grade. My dad didn't work in the coal mines. My dad was a white-collar worker, a salesperson who was a very well-read, high school educated guy. And he moved down to Wilmington, Delaware, where he had been raised as a kid till he was a senior in high school when his family moved to Scranton, because there was work down there. And I remember being dropped off at the little Catholic high school on a place called the Philadelphia Pike. It was a 4-lane access road, but it was a very busy highway. So even though we only lived about 6 blocks away, my mother would drive me so to cross into the parking lot. And I remember one day getting out of the car. She dropped us off, and asking my mother, Mom, why is that bus go by all the time and only has it used to be, say, colored, only has African-American kids in it? And she said, well, because they're not allowed to go to school with white kids. Now in Scranton, I heard someone cheer in Scranton, but there are virtually no black African-Americans when we were growing up. I didn't know any. Delaware has the 8th largest black population in America. It has 19.8% of its population is African American. And I remember thinking how wrong and unfair that was. And that's what animated my interest, having nothing to do, I never thought about politics, but I got involved in the civil rights movement as a kid. And in high school, I was the only white employee in college working in the projects as a lifeguard, because that's where I wanted to be. And so it was always about something that I thought that maybe I can make a difference. And I didn't know what that difference meant, but it was always something I wanted to kind of fix things. I don't know how to explain it at that age other than that. And so for me, the purpose was to, you'd see things and I thought maybe I can help fix it. But I got involved in the civil rights movement in a big way. And that one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I was being asked to run for office. And I didn't know anybody. I come from not a poor background, but a modest background, a 3-bedroom, split level home with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us. And in a safe neighborhood. It was like urban sprawl, the developments, cornfields that developers bought and put 60 houses the same in, and it was the fastest growing county for a long time until the early 70s in the country, Newcastle County. But I didn't know anybody. My mom and dad were never involved in politics, but my mother and father instilled in all of us that if we saw something we thought was wrong, we should speak up. I remember my dad was a gentle man, as I said, that never raised his hand to any of us. My dad used to say that the single greatest sin is the abuse of power, and the cardinal sin is for a man to raise his hand to a woman or a child. And we were encouraged to say something, speak up. I almost got arrested because I intervened when a guy in a supermarket was pushing his wife around, and I had no right to do what I did, but I knew anyway. So we were raised in a way that again, it was all about abuse of power. That it didn't matter whether it was a corporation, a government, an individual, whatever. It was the one thing that was sort of embedded into everything, and it's embedded into my religion as well. It's embedded into I'm not proselytizing.